Welcome to the deep dive. Grab a coffee or something, because today we are opening up a highly classified, heavily redacted stack of documents from the Behavioral Probability Unit.
Yeah, we are looking specifically at their case files for Season 2, Episode 3, codenamed The Devil's Interval.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore a frankly terrifying scenario where something we usually associate with, healing or emotion, like music, literally becomes a highly calculated murder weapon.
It is a really unsettling concept.
It is. So picture this. I want to welcome you to the rainy Pacific Northwest.
Beautiful area.
Oh, absolutely. It is a moody atmospheric evening in Portland, Oregon. You have just stepped out of that coastal drizzle and into the opulent golden interior of the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall.
Such a gorgeous venue.
Right. The crowd is hushed. The stage is perfectly lit. A solo cellist sits completely alone in the center, drawing her bow across the strings to perform a highly anticipated piece called the Triton Solo.
It's the absolute picture of high culture.
Exactly. But we're diving into a case file that completely shatters that illusion using terrifying real-world physics.
Because we need to establish right away that this is not a story about a loud rock concert gone wrong or, a faulty speaker system blowing out someone's eardrums.
No. Not at all.
We are going to explore the incredibly destructive mechanics of sound itself. We are looking at how acoustic engineering can be manipulated into a tactical weapon.
Right.
And we are going to examine the psychology of an unknown subject who treats the physical properties of a concert hall like a loaded gun.
Yeah, because what actually happened during that cello performance is it's almost beyond belief. During the final sweeping movement of the concerto, the cellist held a specific sustained note.
Just one note.
Right, just one sustained note. And as she held it, the 30-foot concrete overhang of Balcony B didn't just crack.
Yeah.
It spontaneously shattered and completely collapsed into the premium seating area right below it.
I mean, any structural engineer reading this file would literally feel their blood run cold.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like when the unit's structural specialist, Agent Damian Cross, arrived on the scene to examine the debris, he had to rule out the obvious stuff first.
Like bombs. Right.
Exactly. His field notes detail this exhaustive search for chemical residues, blast patterns, or even just standard structural fatigue.
Right. The idea that maybe the rebar had rusted over decades and simply gave out under the weight of the audience.
Exactly.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there for a second. Because my mind immediately goes to that classic cinematic trope.
Oh, the opera singer?
Right, exactly. You know the one, the opera singer hits the piercing high note, and the delicate crystal wine glass on the table just shatters.
Yeah, we've all seen that.
And I understand that concept on a small scale. A wine glass is fragile. It is practically begging to be broken.
Sure.
But we are talking about 30 feet of heavily reinforced concrete inside a major civic building.
It's a huge leap.
It really is. So how does a wooden stringed instrument realistically bring down a structure that is designed to hold hundreds of moving, breathing people? Like, what are the physics there?
Well, Agent Cross concluded it was a phenomenon called acoustic resonance. And to understand how that actually takes down concrete, we have to look at the molecular level.
Okay, break that down for me.
So every single material in the universe has a natural frequency. Wood, steel, glass, and yes, even concrete.
Okay.
They all have a specific rate at which their internal molecules naturally want to vibrate. The best way to visualize this is to imagine pushing a child on a playground swing.
Okay, so if you push the swing randomly, you are just going to disrupt the momentum. You might even stop the swing entirely if you push against its natural arc.
That is the key right there.
Yeah.
But if you push at the exact right moment, perfectly matching the swing's natural rhythm, the swing goes higher and higher with very little effort on your part.
Because you are adding energy to the system at peak efficiency.
Exactly. And sound waves do the exact same thing to solid objects. If you hit a concrete balcony with a sound wave that perfectly matches its natural frequency, the concrete absorbs all of that acoustic energy.
And because the cellist is sustaining the note, she is essentially pushing that swing over and over again.
Yes, wait, let me phrase that better, actually. The sustained nature of the note is the actual weapon here.
Right.
As the sound waves continuously hit the concrete at that perfect matching frequency, the vibrations build upon themselves.
They get bigger.
Right, they get wider and more violent at a molecular level. Eventually, the physical bonds holding the cement and aggregate together, they simply cannot stretch any further.
Oh, wow.
And the material tears itself apart. The concrete didn't break because a physical object struck it. It disintegrated because it was forced to resonate beyond its structural limits.
So the unsub basically used a cello to orchestrate a localized earthquake.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that makes me look at the architecture around me in a completely different way. The building was effectively tricked into destroying itself.
It was.
But if the balcony collapsed, common sense dictates the primary cause of death for anyone underneath, it would be blunt force trauma.
You would think so.
I mean, you have thousands of pounds of rubble falling on the seating area. Yet, as I read further into the file, the investigation immediately pivots away from the rubble and goes straight into the medical examiner's tent outside the venue.
Yeah. The autopsy report from medical examiner Dr. Eris Thorne completely changes the trajectory of the entire case.
It gets so dark here.
It really does. So Dr. Thorne examined the primary victim, the individual found directly underneath the center of the balcony B collapse, and he discovered 0 defensive wounds.
Meaning he didn't even try to brace himself.
Right. The victim hadn't raised his arms to protect his head. He hadn't tried to run. Nothing.
Because he was actually already dead before the 30-foot concrete overhang ever hit the floor.
Exactly. Dr. Thorne uncovered something the unit categorizes as internal sound burns.
Sound burns.
Yeah. The sustained note the cellist played wasn't just matching the frequency of the concrete. It was perfectly calibrated to exactly 17.4 hertz.
Okay, I want to camp out on that number for a second.
Yeah.
17.4 hertz. Why that specific frequency? Because I assume it is not random.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So 17.4 hertz is deep in the infrasonic range,
Okay.
meaning it is just below the threshold of human hearing, but much more importantly, it is the precise resonant frequency of the human chest cavity.
Okay, that is just deeply unsettling. I mean, we have all been to a live show, maybe standing too close to the subwoofers where you can literally feel the bass thumping in your chest. You feel your ribs rattling, you know. It is an intense sensation, but it is usually harmless. The killer took that basic acoustic principle and scaled it up into something lethal.
Yeah, let's talk about the biological mechanics of that. When that 17.4 hertz frequency flooded the Arlene Schnitzer Hall at a massive amplitude, it bypassed the victim's ears entirely.
It went straight for his organs.
Exactly. The sound waves penetrated his physical body, matched the natural frequency of his internal organs, and vibrated them violently.
Oh, man.
Dr. Thorne identified the official cause of death as acoustic liquefaction.
Acoustic liquefaction. Just the sheer violence of that phrase is haunting.
It is a horrible way to go. It describes a process where the cellular walls of the internal organs are subjected to such extreme, sustained vibration that they physically rupture.
So his organs just gave out.
Yeah, the victim essentially suffered massive internal hemorrhaging without a single mark on his skin.
There is a fascinating real-world parallel to this that makes it even creepier, actually. I was reading up on infrasound after going through this file, and there is heavily documented research on how low frequencies affect human physiology.
Oh, like with animals and machinery.
Yes, exactly. You find 18 hertz frequencies produced naturally by wind turbines, heavy machinery, and even a tiger's roar.
Really?
Yeah, biologists actually believe a tiger's roar contains infrasound specifically to induce physical paralysis and overwhelming anxiety in their prey before they even strike.
That makes a lot of sense. The ghost frequency phenomenon is another great example of that.
Oh, what is that?
So in the late 90s, a researcher named Vic Tandy figured out that a specific 18.9 hertz frequency, which was generated by a broken extractor fan in his laboratory, was actually causing the fluid in his eyeballs to vibrate.
Wait, really? His eyeballs?
Yeah, it created optical illusions that looked like ghosts alongside these intense feelings of dread.
Wow. So the unsub isn't just killing this victim, he is subjecting him to a primal physiological terror right before his organs fail.
Exactly.
But this brings up a massive logistical problem for me. A standard wooden cello, no matter if it is a priceless Stradivarius or just a modern masterpiece, it cannot naturally produce the raw acoustic power needed to liquefy a human spleen and shatter a concrete balcony.
Right, the amplitude wouldn't be there.
Exactly. I have a pickup on my acoustic guitar. I plug it in and it gets louder. It doesn't turn my guitar into a wrecking ball.
Well, your skepticism is perfectly aligned with the unit's tactical lead, Agent Sarah Hatcher.
Okay, so she had the same thought.
She did. While Damian Cross was out in the main hall sweeping the concrete debris, Agent Hatcher went backstage to dismantle the physical instrument.
Because she knew there had to be something else.
She knew there had to be a mechanical catalyst. And deep inside the cello's end pin, you know, the metal spike that rests on the floor to support the instrument.
Yeah, the part that connects it to the stage.
Right. Inside that end pin, she found a custom-machined piezoelectric transducer.
Huh. I always thought transducers were essentially just basic microphones.
Well, in consumer electronics, they often are. They convert kinetic energy, like the vibration of a guitar string, into electrical signals.
Right, that is how my acoustic pickup works.
Exactly. But the device Agent Hatcher pulled out of that end pin was designed to utilize the reverse piezoelectric effect.
Reverse piezoelectric effect. Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean?
So, certain materials, like quartz or specialized ceramics, naturally generate an electric charge when you squeeze or compress them. That is standard piezoelectricity.
Okay, got it.
But if you reverse the process, if you pump a massive electrical current into those crystals, they violently deform and change shape. They physically expand and contract thousands of times a second.
Meaning they turn raw electricity into kinetic, vibrating energy.
Yes. Agent Hatcher discovered that this specific transducer was wired down through the end pin, straight through the stage floor, and actively siphoning huge amounts of high-voltage power directly from the concert hall's own electrical mains.
Wow, so it hijacked the building's nervous system.
It did. The cello wasn't just an instrument anymore, it was the trigger mechanism.
Right.
The end pin drove those energized vibrations directly into the wooden stage, which then used the entire architectural cavity of the concert hall as a giant amplifier box.
Okay, but if this mechanism requires that level of precision, I mean, you have to play the exact note, sustain it for the right amount of time, and be plugged into the exact spot on the stage.
It is a very specific setup.
Right, so the cellist herself has to be the killer. Juliana Vogt is the one holding the bow. She is the one executing the strike.
You know, that was the initial working theory, but her interrogation completely cleared her.
Really? She had nothing to do with it.
Nothing. Juliana Vogt was genuinely horrified. She told the unit that the cello was a surprise gift delivered specifically for this premiere performance by an anonymous patron.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she had absolutely no idea the end pin had been hollowed out and packed with piezoelectric ceramics.
That is so twisted. The unsub basically turned her beautiful new cello into a lightning rod, and she was the one unknowingly calling down the strike.
From a profiling perspective, that detail is chilling.
Ah.
The killer possesses high-level knowledge of both fine acoustic lutherie and heavy electrical engineering.
Clearly a genius.
But psychologically, they are outsourcing the actual execution to an innocent artist. They prefer to watch from the shadows, corrupting a moment of pure artistic triumph into an act of mass devastation.
It completely removes them from the immediate crime scene while giving them the ultimate God complex thrill.
Exactly.
But here's the most terrifying realization. If we look at the timeline and the scale of the engineering,
It gets worse.
the Arlene Schnitzer Hall was just a premiere. It was a beta test.
That is the scary part.
Right. The killer proved their theories on acoustic physics were correct. They proved their hardware works.
And you don't build a bespoke weapon of this magnitude just to test it once.
No, you don't. The ticking clock is officially set. The unit realizes they are dealing with a serial threat. And this is where the wider BPU team scrambles to get ahead of the next strike.
Which brings in cyber-statistician Agent Jax Reed.
Right. She runs a desperate digital sweep of Portland's sound map, which is the network of acoustic sensors monitoring noise pollution across the city.
And what does she find?
She finds harmonic spikes at 3 different transit hubs across Portland.
So the untub is actively planting more transducers.
Yes, but the locations and the frequencies aren't random at all. Agent Elias Vance, the unit's lead profiler, he starts looking at the math behind the music.
The mathematical progression.
Exactly. The first attack at the concert hall was at 17.4 hertz.
Which is essentially a C sharp, just dropped down into the infrasonic range where we can't hear it.
Right. Vance maps the subsequent harmonic spikes Jax Reed detected, and he realizes the killer is following a strict mathematical harmonic progression.
Let me do the math on that. If the killer is moving down a standard harmonic scale, they aren't just making the next note louder.
No.
They are mathematically stepping down the octave. They are halving the frequency with every subsequent attack.
And lowering the frequency significantly increases the wavelength of the sound.
Right, and a longer sound wave requires a much larger physical structure to catch that wave and resonate with it.
Exactly. So Agent Vance profiles that the killer is no longer targeting a single room or a balcony. The next target has to be a megastructure.
So Agent Damian Cross steps back in with his profile. He looks at the required wavelength, the harmonic progression, and the need for a structure that can physically resonate on a massive scale.
And he pinpoints
He
it.
pinpoints the exact target, the Telecom Crossing Bridge.
For listeners outside the Pacific Northwest, You need to understand that the Tilikum Crossing in Portland is a massive, visually stunning cable-stayed bridge. It carries light rail trains, buses, cyclists, and pedestrians across the Willamette River.
And it is entirely suspended by a network of immense tensioned steel cables.
Right?
Agent Cross highlights a terrifying vulnerability inherent in that specific type of engineering. Cable-stayed bridges are literally designed to sway.
Because they have to be flexible to absorb the impact of high winds and the shifting weight of commuter trains.
Exactly.
So the very flexibility that keeps the bridge safe from wind makes it the ultimate target for acoustic resonance.
The cables are essentially giant steel strings. If the unsub plants a large enough transducer array, perhaps tapping into the high-voltage lines powering the light rail trains, they can hit the exact resonant frequency of those cables.
They are going to play the bridge like a giant guitar during rush hour.
The physics dictate a catastrophic failure cascade. The massive cables will begin to vibrate invisibly. The amplitude will increase with every passing second.
And that vibration transfers down into the concrete deck.
Right, causing it to undulate in waves. Eventually, the structural integrity of the steel will snap, and the entire bridge will shake itself apart, dropping hundreds of commuters straight into the river.
Wow. It just forces you to reevaluate how much faith we put in the physical world around us.
It really does.
You walk across a massive bridge or you sit in a fortified concrete building and you implicitly trust the engineering. You trust the sheer mass of steel and stone to protect you.
You don't even think about it.
Never. But this KISS file reveals what happens when the very physics that hold our world together are turned against us. When a sound wave, something completely invisible, something you cannot build a wall against or outrun, becomes a weapon of mass destruction.
It is a terrifying reality.
Yeah. It makes you wonder just how fragile our modern infrastructure really is when exposed to the hidden mathematical rhythms of the universe. What are the odds that the behavioral probability unit can stop a killer from turning a major bridge into a giant collapsing tuning fork? We're heading to the Tilikum Crossing. See you next time.